Good afternoon. Once again, it is Friday, 5:30 in the p.m. And this is your host for the next 25 minutes of the most interactive television show in town, Hotline 21. I am U.S. Representative Danny K. Davis. And as always, I am delighted to be here with you. Our telephone number is 312-738-1060, and you can give us a call at any time that you so desire. Well, it's been an interesting week. Of course, our good friend, colleague, outstanding personality, outstanding contributor, real advocate for the people, Elijah Cummings, chairman of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, African American who actually has lain in state in the capital of the United States. Millions and millions of people had an opportunity to know of his being, his existence, his contributions. Dignitaries of every stripe, every hue came to view him and his remains, came to be a part of his farewell. When I think of him and think of him leaving, I think of Alfred Lord Tennyson's "O Captain, O Captain." I think of a man who gave much, who was not a glad hander, he wasn't a great big back slapper, he wasn't a media hound. He did his work, he did it well, and he will be remembered that way. We jokingly sometimes say that there's a difference between people in public office who are show horses and then there are work horses. Elijah was a workhorse, not just a show horse. And he worked on behalf of the people, and so I say, so long, my friend. So long, my colleague. So long, a man that I fervently admired. Elijah's office was across the hall from mine. Mine room number's 2159 in Rayburn. And he had his office near the room for the committee that he chaired. And so I got a chance to interact with him many days. Some days we'd be going to vote. Some days we'd just run into each other in the hall. And some days we would actually chat once we were there. So farewell, good friend. A lot of good things are going on in Chicago this weekend, and a lot of good things went on in Washington this week. We passed out of committee a bill to lower the cost of prescription drugs that are paid for with Medicare money, because the bill that we passed out of the Ways and Means Committee would give the Secretary of Health and Human Services the ability to negotiate with the pharmaceutical companies for the cost of these drugs that we're talking about. We had some interesting debates, and we talked about how pharmaceutical companies have been making a great deal of money, and how Americans have been paying as much as 4 times what people in other countries pay for some of the very same items that we purchase. And of course, the big culprit that people talked about the most was the drug that people who are diabetic, insulin, use. And so we're hoping that when we get to the floor, and there are some people who, don't feel that the bill goes far enough. They feel that it's a bit limited. But, part of what people do is develop strategy, and the leadership who really endorsed this bill and stand behind it, I think were trying their best to come up with something that could possibly get passed in the House and then hopefully in the Senate. Although the leader of the Senate has already said, dead on arrival, DOA, that the Senate is not going to pass it, not even perhaps consider it. And we'll see what happens. So we'll just wait and see, or work and see. We don't wait and see, we work and see. So that's what's going to happen. There are new revelations coming up each and every day that many people are calling impeachable offenses. And of course, there are others who say that these are witch hunts and they're not impeachable. But once again, we'll wait and see, or work and see. It reminds me of how 3 umpires were discussing, I'm told, how they see balls and strikes. This is World Series time. And I'm told that one umpire said, well, let me tell you, says, all the close ones with me are balls. Second umpire said, now let me tell you, with me, all the close ones are strikes. I'm told that the third umpire took himself a chew of tobacco and said, well, I tell you, with me, ain't none of them nothing until I call them. And I think that's the way a lot of things are, until the people call them. They're nothing. Their thoughts, their ideas, their projections They're what people believe and think and hope for. But until the people call it, the very best of all polls is on election day, because that's the day when people vote. And so the best poll is the poll that comes as a result of people voting. And that determines the outcome or the end result. I know we had a caller. Let me see if he's still there. Caller, are you there? Maybe he left?
Good
Oh.
evening, Dr. Davis. Can you hear me? Good evening, Dr. Davis, U.S. Representative, 7th District.
Yes, sir. How are you?
All right, I want to get to the point in my comment. The so-called president can be very insulting, and people do not hold him accountable. This week, he said that he feels as though, something to the effect that he is being, there's a lynching. And I
That
want
he
to say
feels
like this.
as though he's being lynched?
I want to make my point. My point is this. Yes, in this country, there have been white people lynched. But when it came to black folks, if I'm wrong about anything, tell me I'm wrong or you can correct me. When it came to lynching of black people, it took a different turn. And when they lynched black folks, not only they hung them by trees, they would put a car tire around them and they put some gasoline and they would light it up and they burn the person alive. Or they would drag them. And once they killed them, that wasn't the end of it. Now, once again, if I'm wrong about anything, stop me. They took it to a different turn, and they would take body parts off them and cut them up, and they would sell the body parts uptown in the store where white people bought those body parts. That was a lynching. White people took it to a different level at all. And like I said, white people was lynched. But guess what? When it came to black folks, it took a different turn. And I don't see the reason why people are not ticked off and why he was not held accountable. And like I said, a lot of black folks should have been mad because there was a lot of black people's family members that they cut up and they sold at the white folks' store uptown. Now, if I'm wrong about anything, please correct me.
Well, lynching of African Americans, and actually Congressman Bobby Rush and I introduced a bill, quite frankly, at the urging of Reverend Jesse Jackson, to make lynching a federal crime. And of course, that bill has not, gained as much attention as perhaps it should have, and as much as we thought it might, because lynching is a sordid part of the history and the treatment, especially of African Americans in this country, leading all the way up to the early 1950s. In many of the southern states especially, there are instances where, and I went to the museum in Alabama. As a matter of fact, my family and I had our family reunion last year last year in Mobile, Alabama. But we actually took a bus and toured different places where our families had lived, and we visited several of those places because our parents migrated from Alabama to Arkansas at the turn of the century, that is, the early 1900s. And so, yeah, the president has a way of kind of distorting things, or at least saying things that we would call a distortion. But I think the bottom line is we don't have to have him as a president any longer than we have to, and that is there will be an election. There will be a day of reckoning, and there will be a day when people can vote one way or the other to get whoever they want to have for president. And so we'll see that when it happens. So thank you for your call. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for being on the line. I want to mention that on Sunday there's going to be, we often talk about bad things, things that are not good. But the North Lawndale Eagles youth football program will be celebrating 30 years. And the gentleman who's the coach, the organizer, the motivator, the stimulator, the activator, Coach Charles Rice, continues to do an outstanding job with that program. And you just look forward to seeing these young kids, young boys. I go to their banquet just about every year. I go wherever they are. And I've been thrilled and delighted and take my hat off to Coach Charles Rice for the outstanding job that he and the other coaches continue to do for the North Lawndale Eagles. They're going to be at Rockney Stadium on Sunday, and I'm going to try to make it out there at 10 o'clock Sunday morning, which will be before I go to church. I usually do the 11 o'clock church time, and so I'm going to go by there if I can and take some photographs with the boys. And I'd be just as happy if we were taking them all to Sunday school as I am to see them playing football. But both ways, they're in an organized activity. But I sure would like to see a lot of them get a chance to go to Sunday school. It's an interesting way of instilling values and installing thoughts and ideas. I'm thinking of the little boy who went to Sunday school one Sunday morning, and when he got home, he was so excited, and his mother asked him, said, "Johnny, why are you so excited?" And he said, "Mom says you really should have been with us this morning." So we just had ourselves a great time at Sunday school. She said, "Well, what was it about?" And he says, "Well, they taught us all about this great general named Moses and how he was leading his people out of Egypt. And the Egyptians were in hot pursuit right behind. And when they got to the Red Sea, Moses dispatched his engineers and they built a pontoon bridge. And his soldiers walked across. And when the Egyptians got there, he got his demolition experts and had them plant dynamite on the bridge. And when the Egyptians got on there, they blew it up and they fell in the sea and got drowned." So I'm told his mother said, Johnny, are you sure that's what they told you? And he says, well, Mom, that ain't exactly the way they told the story, but I figured you'd believe this more than you would what they told us. So Sunday school has a lot of different perspectives. But I tell you, if you've got kids, take them to Sunday school. Even if you don't take them every Sunday, take them some Sundays. Teach them to have faith. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Lord, keep me safe tonight till morning light appear. Let me tell you, I am so grateful that my parents thought enough of me and enough of us to teach us those kind of things. Away in a manger, asleep on the bed, the little Lord Jesus lay his head. The stars are blooming so bright, the little Lord Jesus is going to sleep tonight. Let me tell you, let's give our young people hope, possibility, and the idea that things can be for them what they really want them to be, just as things can be for all of us what we want them to be. I spoke to a group of young people the other day, and I said to them, read yourself a book every day. Read as much as you can, as often as you can, because if you learn to read, you never have to be bored. You never have to be lonely. You never have to say, I don't have anything to do. I don't know anything to do. If you learn to read and to like it, you find yourself reading more each day. First thing I usually do when I get back to Chicago from Washington is stop at the newsstand in the airport, get myself a newspaper to carry with me. I usually read 2 or 3 newspapers every day. I read the North Lawndale Community News. I read the Austin Voice. I read the Austin Weekly. I read the Crusader when I can get my hands on it. I read the Citizens newspaper. I read whatever I can get my hands on. I tell young people that a good book to read is the Bible if you don't have anything else. And even if you do have something else, read, read, read. Reading will free you from boredom. It will free you from thinking that you haven't had certain kind of experiences. If you can't go to London, read about London. If you can't go to Paris, read about Paris. If you can't go to Istanbul, read about it. And so reading, writing, and arithmetic taught to the tune of a hickory stick. You were my gal in calico, and I was your handsome barefoot beau. We hope the strike is going to soon be over, because I think the longer it goes on, the more difficult it becomes. The more difficult it becomes to resolve it. So I hope that the Chicago Teachers Union and the mayor and city hall and representatives of the Board of Education will be able to arrive at a conclusion and say the strike is over. It's time for everybody to go back to school, and that's what we look forward to. Have yourself a great weekend. Do something good for somebody. Do as much as you can for yourself. But the more you help somebody else, the better you're going to be. I end with this song, the more we get together, the happier we'll be. For your friends are my friends, and my friends are your friends. And the more we get together, the happier we will be. I'll see you next week.